All right, everybody, welcome aboard here to the Sports Talk Nation, and we're glad to have you aboard here as we're going to talk quickly about the Mets series victory against the New York Yankees, a series that certainly was big for both teams, and there's a lot to discuss about that. Let's go right at it. All right, so let's go right into it, folks. Here, Mets beat the Yankees 2-1 in their first leg of the Subway Series here for 2021. Of course, highlighted by Sunday afternoon's thrilling Mets comeback where they won by a score of 10-5 over the Yankees. And one thing about the Mets this year is that they have had a proclivity to come back in games. They have a proclivity to hang around in games. They always have found ways at times this year, even when they've had all these injuries, to come from behind, hang around, and more often than not, find ways to win games that sometimes they probably shouldn't have won. And Sunday afternoon's game was certainly a perfect example of that. And in my mind, considering, even with a lot of other big comeback wins they've had this year against Arizona, against Baltimore, against San Diego, they've had some nice wins. This win itself was probably the most spectacular the Mets have had this year, maybe their best win of the year, considering the circumstances and how they had to get there. You consider this was a game against the Yankee team that has been desperate for a victory, a Yankee team that had gone through a week of a lot of trials and tribulations. You had the owner, Hal Steinbrenner, come out there and challenge the Yankees with Yankee players to play better. You had a lot of Yankee fans wanting Aaron Boone gone. You have Brian Cashman potentially in a hot seat. You have all kinds of things going on where the Yankees need to win a game, not just win a game, but win a series, especially against the crosstown rival Mets. And in this game on Sunday, it looked like everything that could go right for the Mets early on was going wrong. Yeah, they have a 1-0 lead early in the first inning, but they could have gotten more. They had Jeff McNeil on first base on a play that had to be reviewed. Looked like he was safe initially, then they ruled him out, and then that call was overturned. And the Mets ended up stranding him at first base. Then again in the third inning, an inning later, the Mets get a couple guys. Should have had two men on, but Brandon Nimmo was ruled out at first base. They challenged it, and he stayed out, even though it looked like his foot got to the bag before Luke Voigt's foot. He should have been ruled safe. That could have been a big moment in the game. That seemed like that was going to hang around for this game for the rest of the afternoon. Lindor, he almost cost the Mets, too, in that first game of the doubleheader where he had an error. Huge error in the ball game that really opened up the opportunity for the Yankees. Mets were up 1-0, and Lindor bobbles what should have been a double play. It would have been the first two outs of the inning, but the Yankees never would have scored those 3 runs in that inning. I know they were all only 1 run was charged to Marcus Stroman. In my mind, all 3 runs should have been unearned to him in that situation because that was all Lindor. Yankees had a 4-1 lead, yet Mets came back, eventually tied the game up at 4, where they were able to knock Garrett Cole out of the game. We'll get into more about Cole and his performance in a second. But this is the thing about the Mets. They just find ways to string hits together. They find ways to string at-bats together. Conforto, in that 4th inning, drawing the walk after falling behind 1-2. You have Billy McKinney falling behind 1-2, ends up drawing a walk, and then you have the base hit by McNeil, loads the bases for Nitto. And in a pressure situation against the Yankees ace, he just takes a pitch, goes the other way with it into right field for a base hit, keeps the conga line moving. And that's what's so great to watch about this team is, yes, you would like to see the Mets hit more home runs. Yes, we would like to see this team hit more power and drive more runs in. They're one of the worst scoring teams in the league this year. But when they do get their runs, they are very capable of stringing hits together, and that's what they did in this game on Sunday afternoon. Nimmo gained the big base hit that chases Cole out of the game, makes it a 4-3 game. And then, of course, they tie the game the Mets do at 4 on the Lindor base hit. And you're thinking, well, maybe the Mets can get something together. Maybe they can find a way to to steal this game in the middle innings. And their offense goes silent over the next 2 innings. The Yankees get a run back on a wild pitch. And it looks like this game's going to get away from the Mets. You don't know what's going to come on the Sunday night game. You're thinking, man, this is going to be a bad weekend for the Mets here because you got Corey Oswalt going on the night game. Chances are he's going to get knocked around. He's a guy who's Had a inconsistent career when he's gotten called up by the Mets at times. But then, of course, we get into that 7th inning with Aroldis Chapman. If you're sitting there watching the game on television, if you're lucky enough to be in a ballpark, you probably didn't expect it. And I know for Yankee fans, they're saying, well, we've been used to this with Chapman for a while. But you would think at some point, Aroldis Chapman's going to figure things out. And the way things have been going for the Mets in this game and over the last couple of weeks, considering they have had issues, trying to win games when they were playing games in the division, you're thinking, here we go, probably going to be a loss. Chapman's going to figure it out. But then, of course, Alonso with a big home run. And that just opened up the floodgates. Chapman completely loses control. He hits Conforto. Then he ends up walking McNeil. That forces Aaron Boone to take him out of the game. And then, of course, everything just happens for the Mets. Peraza with a big double that was stolen by the fan. It would have been a base hit double anyway. It would have carried it off the wall. Maybe it would have gotten a couple more runs in, but it ends up working out for the Mets because Brandon Nimmo comes up next, and he gets a big base hit, driving a couple more runs to make it 9-5, and the Mets were on the way to a win. A stunning win and an incredible win at that for the New York Mets as they got their 43rd win of the year. Yes, they ended up losing the nightcap to the Yankees 4-2, but the Mets got the series, and for the Mets, that's what they needed. They needed to win this series, considering that they had really struggled for the last couple of weeks in division, and now you're going up against your crosstown rival, a team that was desperate. This was a big series for the Mets. They needed it. Going into a big series this week before the All-Star break against Milwaukee, and of course they got Pittsburgh next weekend as well, but with the big series against Milwaukee looming, if you were the Mets, you wanted to get this series. You had to get this series if you are a Met from the Met perspective. A couple of notes here. You got to love the way Brandon Nimmo has come back with a vengeance since coming back off the injury list. I mean, he had missed 60 days since his last appearance in a game until Saturday when he appeared in the first game of this series. And he just went off in this series. He had 5 hits out of 11 at bats in the first 2 games of this series. He scored 3 runs. He was a pest on the bases and was just making this offense go. And you can see when he is healthy and you have that kind of catalyst at the top of the order, it just makes it a lot easier for everybody else. Pete Alonso starting to get going with his bat in this series. He had a couple of home runs, including a home run in the nightcap, the game the Mets lost. Now with 15 home runs, 41 RBIs in the year. And hopefully from the Mets standpoint, we could start to see Alonso get going. And the Mets need to see some of their big stars get going with the bat a little bit. And for a team that's trying to get to the postseason, a team that obviously needs some help, they need to, you would love to see the Mets go out there, get another bat, get another starting pitcher, maybe another reliever here before the trade deadline. But you love the way this team fights night in and night out, and they never feel they're out of the game. That's huge for a team that's trying to get to some serious October baseball. Now, on the flip side here, for the Yankees, this was an absolute disaster for them. As I mentioned at the top, all the missives that were issued out this week by the owner, by the manager, by even the general manager, that this was a crucial week, as Aaron Boone said, that this was going to help define our season. Well, if this was the definition of their season, the Yankees are toast. Because, I know they won the nightcap. I know they're game over 500 now. But they should have won the first game of this series. They didn't do it. They should have won the game on Wednesday night against the Angels. Failed to do that. I don't know what to tell you about Aroldis Chapman. I saw a statistic that Chapman's ERA is over 22 in the last handful of 8 or 9 opportunities on the mound. He has been bad. I mean, I don't know if they need to put him on the injury list. I don't know if they need to send him down, but he is just not right. And it's just not working out for him because they cannot allow him to close games right now. They need to look for somebody else to close games, for that matter. And not only that, but Garrett Cole also has not pitched well for this team for a better part of the last month. Ever since the league started investigating pitchers for sticky substances on their hands, Garrett Cole's ERA has ballooned. It ballooned to over 4 for the last 4 starts coming into this game. And I'm sure it's probably around that as well. I mean, his ERA right now on the season is now at 2.91. It's now approaching 3. This was a guy who had an ERA earlier in the year that was just over 1. So he has really struggled for a while now, and the Yankees have to get him going. because they don't have a lot of depth at the starting pitching, and they're now 10 games out, and you have to sit there and ask yourself, if you're the Yankees, when do we, if this team's going to fall out of it? Because they got Seattle this week, who's in contention. They got the Astros, who are red hot in the American League West at the end of the week, on the weekend. If the thing comes apart going into the All-Star break, and it is coming apart, do the Yankees become sellers at the trade deadline? And there's a lot now discussion, rumors about the Yankees maybe shipping a Aaron Judge. I would imagine Gary Sanchez would be a guy that a lot of Yankees would like to unload at some point, but he's not a consistent enough player that's going to get enough in return. So there's a lot of discussions about the future of a lot of players for the Yankees right now moving forward. And I know a lot of Yankee fans want Aaron Boone gone. I know a lot of Yankee fans would like to see Brian Cashman gone. If the Yankees come out of this upcoming road trip another 2-4 with another 2-win 4-loss effort, or a 1-win 5-loss effort, I don't know how you go into the All-Star break and come out of the All-Star break where you have 8 out of 10 games against the Red Sox and not make changes. I just don't know how you do that. So they got a lot of problems going on. So I think in a lot of ways this Subway Series really showed us where these two teams are. You got the Mets, who are in contention, who play gritty baseball every single night, and the Yankees, who are a team that just can't get out of their own way. It's ironic in a lot of ways, because in the history of this series, it's just the other way around, especially in the early part of the series, late 90s through the 2000s. It was the Yankees, of course, the Joe Torre Yankees, who were the team that would always find a way to win games, pull games out in late innings, and a lot of times to their chagrin of the Mets when they would play each other in the Subway Series. The Mets were always the team that would just kind of like make buffoons of themselves in the field. Now the tables have completely turned here in 2021. So if you're a Met fan, this was a big, exciting, and wonderful weekend for the New York Mets. For the Yankees, not so much. So, folks, a lot of big stuff coming on. We're going to get some guests coming on here. Talk a little bit about some baseball right now as we head into the All-Star break. We're at the halfway point of the season now. What should be done for the trade deadline for these teams moving forward? We'll have a couple guests on to talk about that in the next coming days. So remember, like and subscribe below. If you like the content here, we'll talk to you next time here on the Sports Talk Nation. I'm Michael Cohen. Take care.